What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the O Show, episode 379 of the podcast this week, presented by, you know it, Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona. Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale offers an authentic experience for those who want to learn from Floyd Money Mayweather's techniques and training regimens while getting in the best shape of their lives and in a high-intensity group fitness setting. Head on down to Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale. And again, they have their grand opening sweepstakes taking place right now. You can win up to 1 year free. That's right, free unlimited membership valued at $1,188. You can enter now by heading on over to the Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale Instagram page at Mayweather Fit Scottsdale. Today on the show, we are previewing, which is probably the biggest fight of 2021, Connor McGregor taking on Dustin Poirier, the trilogy fight at UFC 264 in Las Vegas this weekend, which is why I am bringing in old reliable for these MMA shows, MMA Mikey Battaglino, live in studio for the first time ever. Amazing
to be here.
Is it?
Yeah.
You like it?
A lot. I'm still a little amazed by the studio and the view in the back. And it's nice to do a podcast, like being official.
We haven't done one in a few months, actually. We were on a hot streak between like September through January. Stopped for a little bit. Had one in April to preview. I think we previewed McGregor Poirier 2, actually. And now we're going to do the third one. We're going to the fight this weekend. We're going to be in Vegas. That's why you're out here.
Yep.
So we're both originally from New Jersey. I moved out here to Arizona a couple years ago. I've been out here for almost 5 years now. You are here for the weekend with my brother Declan, who unfortunately, soft spot for him there, got sick while we were at the Grand Canyon yesterday. We celebrated my brother Declan's birthday at the Grand Canyon yesterday. We did a Stone Cold Steve Austin beer salute, bashed the cans. If Zach, you want to play that video, there we are, the salute. We totally botched it, but we finished it. Threw a couple of Miller Lights off the edge of the Grand Canyon on the south rim. I think I said there that I got more in my eye than I did actually in my mouth.
Yeah,
and we had a fun time. Maybe that's what got him sick.
More than likely, yeah.
He was drinking Miller Lite at 8 o'clock in the morning.
That'll do, and lack of sleep.
Well, he's sleeping now. We got to pick up antibiotics later.
Yep.
It's quite the trip that we've had. Grand Canyon, antibiotics. But UFC this weekend.
Exactly.
So you want to recap the fights?
For sure.
Just like old times?
For sure. We might as well dive right into it, man. This
Connor
main event.
McGregor, Dustin Poirier, the main event, the trilogy fight between these guys.
Yeah.
The first fight took place, 7-8 years ago?
A while ago. And I'll tell you what, I really think that this trilogy is got to be in one of the top trilogies in the UFC.
Diamond Dustin versus the Notorious one. He hasn't been that notorious of late, though.
No, but what I will say is that I think when Connor loses, he responds well. And when you looked at the first fight, right, you go back and you look at it, it didn't last too long, right? Connor got Poirier out of there pretty fast, but he was very elusive. And he came out and was throwing a lot of kicks all over, kicks to the body, kicks to the head. And, he had Poirier going in every which way, wherever he wanted him going, right? And when we previewed the rematch, I told you that that's what I kind of thought was going to happen, right? I thought Connor was going to come out and throw a lot of kicks, and I thought that he was going to set up traps and push them every which way.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. And Connor came out with a very different approach, a very boxing-heavy approach, and he was very heavy on that lead leg. And, I will say a lot of people kind of critiqued Connor's first round, but I thought that he looked pretty good, to be honest with you, considering the style that he brought out. He was trading with Poirier. He pretty much played Poirier's game that Poirier wanted to play. Stand right in front of him, exchange, and Connor landed a lot of nice strikes, so did Poirier. And Poirier even, got that takedown, which was very big, and I think a lot of people forget because in this third fight, it could play a big factor. Poirier was able to take McGregor down very easily. Now, Connor did get back up and even, I wouldn't say dominated, but controlled in the clinch aspect. He was able to turn it around, throw in some shoulder strikes, give some knees and whatnot, and then, they broke out of the clinch. And I think that that's something that we need to think about when, we think about this third fight is there could be a lot more ground aspect in this trilogy fight, which also could let the fight play out a lot longer as well.
Now, this fight was announced literally, they both in their post-fight interviews with Rogan at the second fight back in January, they're both like, yeah, let's do this again. Like, I'm definitely down to do this again. That's why they set up the trilogy. However, we've talked about it multiple times. This could be very detrimental to Dustin Poirier if he loses this fight. You have a huge win over arguably one of the biggest fighters in UFC history in the modern era in Connor McGregor. But if he beats you this Saturday at UFC 264, all that momentum's gone.
Exactly. I mean, you know, it's a very risky fight, right? Because you are the number one contender right now, right? But then again, it's a huge payday. It's the bigger payday out of any fight that you could have right now, right? Now, I think, I mean, even Dana White has said it. The winner of this fight is going to get the title fight next, which would make sense. You know, Dustin's the number one contender. He's defending that number one contender spot. Connor, who, you know, we have to assume is hungry to get that title back, right? Because why else fight? You have all the money in the world, and he's got to be hungry to get that belt back. Yes, he lost, and he probably didn't expect to lose that rematch with Poirier, which is another reason why I think that, you know, this might motivate him to come back and have a great performance. Because in the past, like I said, you know, he kind of responds to loss well to a degree. When he lost to Diaz the first time, came back immediately and then won. After he lost to Khabib, he came back, destroyed Cowboy. We'll see if history repeats itself. Dustin Poirier is obviously one of the most game opponents that McGregor has had to fight besides Khabib. So, you know, we will see. But yes, this fight has got to be risky because if Dustin Poirier loses to Conor McGregor, he's got to climb back up the ladder. He's at the top of the ladder right now. Why wouldn't you take the title fight and then say, okay, I want to defend against Conor? Because that could very easily happen. He decided, no, I'm going to fight Conor again, which is I mean, I don't know if it's more of a dangerous fight because Charles Oliveira, the champ currently right now, who just defeated Michael Chandler, he's very good. I mean, he very well could potentially beat both Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. So the lightweight division is obviously, you know, full of fantastic fighters, and styles make matchups and fights. So I feel like we could get a title bouncing around a little bit. But as far as, you know, this trilogy, when you look at it, in my eyes, you know, what both fighters are going to take away, right? And go into this third fight. Because on both ends, you know, Dustin Poirier can't necessarily go in with the same game plan because you know Conor is going to attempt to make those adjustments, right? At the end of the first round, Conor's front leg got beat up by calf kicks. I mean, everyone saw that, right? So you got to think, okay, Conor's going to try and make an adjustment to that. How? You know, check them, number one, maybe throw some of his own, and then also throw, you know, a straight left or hard jab, you know, and try and catch those counters, you know what I mean? And throw counters so that way when Conor sees, you know, what combinations that Dustin had thrown, you know, when you go back and look at the tape and see the combinations that he was throwing to set up the calf kick, that's another way that, you know, he can look in and trying to make adjustments. But then again, Dustin probably isn't going to go in with the same approach. You know, why would you go in with the same approach twice? That's why I really think Dustin is probably going to try and take Conor down and hold him a little bit and try and work in some game and maybe even try and submit him. You know, and I also think that it's a good way to attack Conor in that degree because in the past, Conor hasn't had the best gas tank all the time. So why not attack him in that area? You know what I mean?
Nobody's beaten Conor twice in the UFC, correct?
Correct. I don't think Conor, I mean, in his whole career, I don't believe that he's lost to the same opponent twice.
I think Nate came close. You could argue that Nate Diaz beat Conor in the second fight that they had. So he submitted Conor, which shocked everybody because he replaced Dos Santos at the last second and beat Conor McGregor, who at the time, that was his first UFC loss, I think.
Yeah, first UFC loss. He also moved up 2 weight classes for that fight. They fought at 170. Conor, you know, was on his featherweight, you know, reign for a while, going up, getting the belt, and then was going to go for the, you know, second belt. But like you said, Dos Santos fell out.
So there's a lot on the line in this fight. Because if Dustin Poirier wins, you're the only guy in UFC history that's defeated Conor McGregor twice. Back-to-back fights, no less.
Yeah.
So, you are at the top of the food chain. You're taking on Oliveira for the lightweight title. No questions asked. However, if Conor wins, Dustin's thrown back into the ocean, thrown back in the middle of the pool there in the lightweight division. And Conor McGregor, I guess he goes on to fight Oliveira. I mean, he's still a big draw, but, if McGregor loses this fight, this is just business to him. He's making money. The height of his career is past him, I think. I think he's done everything that he's wanted to do. I don't think there's a huge fight in Conor's future beyond this point. Just by throwing the name McGregor on the bill, Dana White's going to make a ton of money. It's the first fight weekend in Las Vegas since the pandemic, so it's going to be huge. But Conor McGregor doesn't need to win this fight. If he wins, he's back in the game. If he loses, I think he's out.
I think you're totally right. And unfortunately, being the fan of his that I am, and I know you're a fan of his as well. I mean, he kind of got us into watching UFC. I don't think he'll ever be the same that he was on his journey to the belt. He was so hungry. No matter how hard he could convince himself that he is hungry like that, he never will be again.
No,
it's just how it is. Does he still have the talent and the skill to pick up, the lightweight belt? I do think he has it. You know what I mean? I just don't think that, like you said, I don't think he's at the peak that he was, and I don't think he'll ever get there again, just because of what has happened in his life and where he's been. Now, I do want to ask you, what's your prediction on this fight, and how do you think it'll play out? Before I give my official prediction.
I just want to enjoy my weekend in Vegas with you guys.
Okay.
I've never spent an extended weekend there before. You hear mixed stuff about it, but we're excited. We're from the East Coast. Watching hangover movies growing up, Las Vegas was the shiz. So, I think I just want to enjoy it. I think if McGregor wins, great. If Poirier wins, great. I think Dustin deserves it, because if he loses this fight again, he's gambling with house money right now. If he loses, I don't see a bright future for him, only because he's going to get thrown back into that cesspool of fighters. And he's going to have to work his way back to the top of the food chain, where if Conor wins, he's a draw already. If Conor loses this fight, I don't see him ever getting a title match again. However, if you just throw his name on a card, it's going to make money for Dana White. Dustin has to win this fight, which I guess makes me want to lean towards him, but I don't see a clear winner. I don't think anybody has an advantage going into this fight. Even Dustin, given the fact that he won the last fight, because like you said, Conor and him are both going to readjust. They're both going to go in with different game plans, because if you go in with the same approach, he's going to see it right away.
Exactly. And, these fighters have both been in there twice with each other now, right? So they both have seen what each other can do. Now, granted, there's a lot of film on other fights that they've had and whatnot, but they've both felt their presence in there, both felt their shots. Dustin Poirier on Joe Rogan's podcast has said, in the second fight, in the rematch, that McGregor rocked him a couple times. He got his bell rung, you know what I mean? And, he's felt Conor's power, and maybe he feels that, since the rematch was at lightweight, maybe he could take a few of those. Maybe that'll play into consideration. It may make him too confident that he can take the shots of Conor, you know what I mean? For Conor, obviously, he had a good first round, but he knows that maybe his power at lightweight and Dustin being bigger, maybe he knows that, okay, that one shot isn't going to just put him out. Maybe I need to be able to throw multiple of these instead of just a couple small power shots and banking on them to get out. I need to have a different approach and know that I need to land volume to get them out. You know what I mean? So I think for both fighters, like we keep saying, that they're going to need to make adjustments. Now, the way I see this fight playing out, like you have said and I have said, risky fight for Dustin, right? But also Conor's got his back against the wall. I think that, he needs to win this fight. Otherwise, what's there for him? As a fight fan, truthfully, I don't care to watch him really again if he loses. Because who are they going to throw him in there with? Nate Diaz? I don't.
I'd watch it.
I'd watch it, but I wouldn't.
The trilogy,
I wouldn't
6 years later?
I wouldn't die for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would love to see Conor win. And I'd love to see Conor go and face Oliveira and try and play mind games with Oliveira and try and get that belt back. I would love that more than anything as a fight fan.
Well, I guess we're both leaning toward Dustin just because I feel like he deserves it a lot more. And it's going to be very interesting this weekend because we went to the UFC, I think it was 205, correct? It was McGregor versus Alvarez, Eddie Alvarez, when he became the first ever double champ in history simultaneously at both lightweight and featherweight.
Featherweight,
right? So Connor McGregor, we went to that press conference, awesome press conference, Madison Square Garden, New York City. We're going to go to the one tomorrow in Vegas. Second card that we've kind of covered that McGregor main evented and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson co-main evented.
Yeah, a little weird, right? And then, we went to UFC 208 and Dustin Poirier fought on that card. So we got a little bit of history with these fighters. Before we get into the co-main event, you know what? I'm going to go. I know Dustin probably deserves the win, right? I'm going to say Connor wins.
Nobody's beaten him twice.
Nobody's beaten him twice.
You have to go back to.
I'm going to say Connor wins, and I think he wins in the second round by knockout.
Really?
Yeah, I think
if Connor doesn't knock him out in the first round, Dustin's going to win.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's be real. Connor's best chance is to win in the first or second, right? And then from there on, I think the odds of Poirier winning it grows. You know what I mean? But I think that Connor is going to... I don't think Dustin's going to come out and try and throw calf kicks. I really don't, because of what happened last time, and I think that he thinks Connor is anticipating that. I think Connor's going to come out and kind of give more of an elusive approach like he used to in the older days. He hasn't been doing as much media leading up to this fight. I think that he's kind of locked himself in with his old style, really going in there with his coaches. I mentioned this to you once before when I said that George St. Pierre, if he were to give Connor advice, is go old approach, right? Do something and make a change, even if it's not really going to change your ability, but it'll help you mentally to build more confidence, right? Go back to the old school ways of going into the gym. Your coach tells you what to do. Your coach tells you when you're going to do this, how you're going to do it, and whatnot, right? Recently, I just read the same thing. Big John McCarthy, referee, said he needs to do the same thing. You know what I mean? And if he is doing that, I think he should win, and I think he will win, and I think we'll see that. Now, a big thing is I'm excited to see the energy of both fighters when we go to the press conference. I'm excited to see both energies from both fighters, even on the whole main card when we see the weigh-in. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting.
Well, I think both of these guys respect each other a lot. It's not like Connor and Nate where they were going at it. They hated each other. There was no respect there before that second fight. Where these guys respect each other, but are they going to put on a show? Because Dana White, you got to promote the fight.
Well, that's
Connor's your best trash talker.
Exactly. And in the first fight, let's be real, Connor got in Poirier's head big time, right? The second fight, very respectful on both parties, right? And I think that also plays a little bit into that McGregor maybe was too confident. Maybe he thought he just had it in the bag, you know what I mean? And I'm all right, I beat him once, I'm probably going to do it again, and I'll just play Mr. Nice Guy this time. And, he was Mr. Nice Guy against Cowboy, and I think he did need to clean up his act a little bit because of how crazy he got. But on Twitter, he's thrown some trash talk at Poirier, and I think we're going to see it at the press conference. I think we're going to get a little bit of a trash talking Connor, and I think that is the best thing for him. I think he needs to build that confidence, throw that trash talk out there, and it'll just kind of bring that oldness out of him and give him the best mindset going into the fight.
First fight weekend in Vegas, too, in front of fans. You got to give them what they want.
Yeah, true.
So what do you think of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in this fight? Who's he fighting this weekend?
Gilbert Burns.
Oh, wow. So this is a very good co-main event. This is probably a main event on any other card.
On a fight night, this is for sure a main event. But the interesting thing is that this is a 3-round fight, which could, very well.
What was he went 5 with Tyron, right, at 205?
Yep.
That today is still the most insane outcome I think I've ever watched. He was dead to rights.
Almost twice. Almost, yeah.
I thought he was going to snap his neck.
He almost got knocked out, too.
I thought he was going to snap his neck, and somehow he was able to not only stay conscious, but get himself out of that and stay in that fight for another round to have the final decision be a draw between the two of them.
And probably won that last round, too, which is crazy. You know what I mean? They so that, went to a majority draw. And then they had the rematch, which he lost. But, came back, beat Jorge Masvidal, took 2 losses. Now, one being very close to Darren Till. Some people argue that he could have won that fight. Was beating Anthony Pettis and got knocked out. Kind of a freak thing. It happens. It's the fight game. But then unanimously beat Vicente Luque and Geoff Neal in a 5-round fight. Stephen Thompson is a great fighter.
Oh, yeah.
Great fighter. Now, a lot of people say this is kind of a jiu-jitsu versus striker fight, but Gilbert Burns has great striking. He rocked the champ, Kamaru Usman, almost got him out of there to a degree, had him stumbling a little bit. I think that, obviously there's an advantage for Burns on the ground. If he could take him down, control him. Like I said, it's a 3-round fight, so if he can control two of the 3 rounds, he could win. You know what I mean? Maybe get a submission, but like you said, it's hard to submit Thompson. I mean, Woodley couldn't do it, and when Woodley was in his prime, Woodley was a great champion for the amount that he was. And I think Stephen Thompson has good takedown defense. I think it's going to be hard. Gilbert Burns kind of, when he strikes, he stays in, the range. And personally, I'm going to take Stephen Thompson this fight. I think that Thompson, yes, he may get taken down, but I think he's got good takedown defense, but also ground defense. I think he doesn't take too much damage when he's on the ground. I think he could get out of submissions. I say this, but, watch him get submitted or something. But his striking, he sets up great counters and traps. And for Burns, he really believes that he got too confident and too aggressive in his last fight against the champ, Kamaru Usman. And I think, when you're an aggressive fighter and you have power, and then all of a sudden you think, I got too aggressive, I'm going to contract a little bit. That is the worst thing to do against a guy like Stephen Thompson, because you're going to now play into Thompson's games. You can't play a chess match with Thompson because Thompson's going to beat you in a chess match. You have to be aggressive, get in his face, push him up against the fence, get takedowns, especially if you're a grappler. So mentally, I just think that where Gilbert Burns is at, coming off of the devastating loss that he has, and Stephen Thompson is on the rise to a degree, you know what I mean? Coming off of 2 good wins, and he's one of the only guys in the division, in the top of the division, who hasn't faced Kamaru Usman. So for the UFC, having Stephen Thompson beat Gilbert Burns is great.
Sets up another huge mega match.
And one that Kamaru Usman hasn't had yet. Kamaru Usman has pretty much lapped the division, beat them all. And now he's kind of coming on to that second lap, beat Jorge Masvidal twice. He's probably going to have a rematch with Kobe Covington soon. Why not get him a fresh opponent? I think it'd be great for the UFC if Thompson wins. So I'm going with Thompson.
Right. He's won 2 fights in a row, but at the same time, he's still climbing the ladder. He's not quite there yet. So if he loses this fight and Burns is back in the mix, it's not a bad fight to do that again. Another round between Burns and Usman.
It was a close fight.
We've seen it before. Yeah. We've never seen Wonder Boy versus
Exactly.
Usman.
And I think stylistically, it's a tough matchup for Kamaru if Kamaru continues this trend of standing up with guys. Ever since he moved his camp and he's training with Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje, he's kind of liked to strike. You know what I mean? Not that he hasn't in the past, but he's had such a dominant wrestling approach to every fight. And now, he's standing up with guys and he's knocking them out. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if he continues that, if Thompson won and then went on to fight him. I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, he's going to know what he needs to do, and that is to take down Thompson in a potential matchup. But Stephen Thompson's stylistically in the striking department a tough matchup for Kamaru Usman if Usman doesn't decide to take him down. You know what I mean? So that would be a fun matchup. 2
amazing high-profile co-main events there with McGregor Poirier and then Wonder Boy versus Burns, because any of those fights can go in any which direction. Where I think that 3rd fight with Dallas Cowboy great Greg Hardy, I say that sarcastically, he'll be on the card. This is the first time he's been on the main card in how long? It's been a long time for him, I feel like. And he's a good fighter.
Of a pay-per-view, yeah. He may have been on the... I forget if he was on the main... No, he wasn't on the main card of... UFC 249.
No, he wasn't.
No, but he's been on main cards of UFC
He's
fight
been on
nights.
a lot of prelims, I know.
Yeah. Yes. He's been on the main card of a couple fight nights. He's coming off of a loss to Tibera. You know, he was doing well for a while. You know, obviously young as a fighter, doesn't have, you know, all of the martial arts down to a T yet, but obviously has crazy power in his hands. And in the first round, he's going to definitely be dangerous. And he's continuing to grow and evolve as a fighter as well. But, you know, this fight isn't going to be easy for him. He's facing a very, very good opponent in Tai Tuivasa, who is also, you know, growing as a fighter as well. I'm going to go with Tai Tuivasa here. I think he gets it done. I think Greg Hardy... Look, in the first round, it's up for grabs because whoever lands first, essentially, right? It is the heavyweight division. But I think Tai Tuivasa is just a little bit better of a martial artist, and wherever the fight does go, I think, you know, he should be able to win. But it's the heavyweight division, man.
And what's our bantamweight matchup for this main card? I think there's one women's bantamweight matchup that we have here between, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so...
It's the only women's fight on the card, right?
On the main card.
Okay.
Yeah, on the prelims, we also have Jennifer Maia versus Jessica Ai, which should be a pretty good fight. But yeah, there is only two female fights on the whole card.
Wow, really?
Yeah, which is kind of light. It is kind of light. Typically, there is more.
Huh.
I don't know what the purpose of that was, but yeah.
Interesting. And who do you have in that fight then? Because those are two pretty powerful, you know, both great striking, I feel like.
Jennifer Maia and Jessica Ai, or are we talking about the one on the main card?
Main card.
Irene Aldana and Yana Kinnett. That's a rough last name. I'm going to pass on that one.
That's why I threw it to you.
Yeah, Yana is actually, I believe she's married to Thiago Santos, which is kind of interesting. But she had a great win her last fight. And Irene Aldana is coming off of a loss to Holly Holm. Holly Holm obviously had a great performance that fight. It was a 5-round fight. It was a main event. Irene Aldana is a very good fighter. I'm going to go with Aldana because her striking is pretty legit. She did fall into a little bit of a trap, you know, when she lost to Holly Holm. Holly Holm just kept circling around and just throwing strikes. And Aldana obviously has a chin. She took a lot of strikes from Holly Holm. I think she's going to learn from that fight, and I think she'll be able to win. But Yana's a very good fighter, especially in the clinch. She's kind of bigger for the division as well. And if she can press Aldana to the cage and kind of get it into a dirty clinch fight, could go her way. But I'm going to go with Aldana. I think that she has a lot of skills, and especially in the stand-up department, I think she should be able to get it done.
I think when you look at these bottom three fights, you got Sean O'Malley kicking things off in his return. Then you have the bantamweight fight. Then you have the Greg Hardy fight in the heavyweight round. I think those will be technical fights, and then your co-main events are going to be the knockout rounds. Those are going to be the big fights.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Sean O'Malley, obviously big name, right?
Yeah.
Great way to start off the main card. He is a huge favorite, partially because they had to find a fight for him.
The guy doesn't even have a graphic.
On late notice. Well, this is going to be his first UFC fight.
So he's got to earn it?
To a degree. I don't know the contract-ish deal, whatever they're doing.
Forgot to submit Dana a picture, I guess, for the website.
Well, you know what? They'll probably take it on, this media week when they take all the fighters' photos and whatnot. This fight may earn him a contract. I'm not 100% sure what the deal is, but Sean O'Malley was supposed to fight a different fighter. He fell out, and so they were scrambling to find someone to fight him. You know what I mean? And obviously under 2 weeks' notice, it's got to be hard to find an opponent. And you don't want Sean O'Malley to be scrapped off of a huge pay-per-view card. No. He, like you said, great way to start off the card.
He's on his way back, too, because he had that big loss. It was his first loss almost a year ago. It was Cormier versus Miocic 3 when DC retired last year. We were watching that in your living room.
Yep.
And then he comes back after that injury. It was a freak accident, too. I forget what exactly happened. He kind of just tripped on himself and, like, tore his Achilles.
Oh, yeah, he had some ankle issues in that fight, and he's had some ankle issues in the past as well, but came back, had a beautiful performance against Thomas Almeida, and that was ironically on another Miocic card, but that's besides the point. But had a great performance, and I think this should be another win for him. I don't want to discredit this kid. I think he's going to come in and try and give O'Malley a tough fight. But at the same time, I think O'Malley should be fighting ranked opponents right now, and he's not. For whatever the reason is, the UFC is trying to build him up a little bit more, keep giving him these unranked fights. I mean, the fight that he was supposed to have before was against another fighter who isn't ranked. I don't know why they're not.
What weight division is he?
135.
135. So he wouldn't be able to fight Connor at any point.
No.
Because that would have been an interesting match.
I mean, O'Malley is pretty tall. He is pretty tall, and
that would be a fight Connor can come back for if he loses this fight to Dustin, just as something to promote. Would be huge for O'Malley too down the road.
Yeah, I feel like O'Malley would have to move up a weight division, and it might have to happen in a little bit of time. Just Connor's probably a little bit too big, and it'd probably be a tough matchup for O'Malley this minute. You know what I mean?
It's amazing how slim these guys get for fights. How they can cut from 175 to 145. Just Connor's been at 145 all the way up to 170.
When he fought Diaz for the first time, yeah, he had to go up in weight too. He was planning on having a 155 bout and then ended up just having a 170 bout. Kind of fixed his frame, gained a little more weight for the rematch, obviously, but has had fights at 170. He got big for a while, like when he fought Cowboy. That fight was at 170. And then he did say for, the Poirier rematch, so the second fight, he got his size back down into a lightweight frame. He looks in great shape for this fight. I don't know what he's walking around at, but he's probably not walking around too heavy. He probably has an average weight cut. But a lot of these guys have to cut extreme weight. For example, Davison Figueiredo walks around, I think, 145, 150, and then cuts down to 125 for, the fight, which is unbelievable. I couldn't imagine cutting that much weight in a small period of time.
I mean, you wrestled. You know what it's like, kind of.
Yeah, but you're just keeping your weight that low instead of needing to lose it in a week's time. I couldn't even imagine.
Eating grapes for lunch.
Yeah.
I had a few friends growing up where their moms would just give them grapes for lunch because they had to cut weight.
Fruit. Just living off fruit. Oh, my God.
I told you I went out to dinner with Justin Gaethje, UFC fighter. Hopefully we'll have on the show at some point. And he looked thin, shockingly thin, because last fight he weighed in at 155. He may have been less than that. Still rock solid human being. He went in for one of those bro hugs, and I was telling you guys, it was like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
I was surprised when you sent me a picture of you and him, how thin he did look compared to you, because you're a bigger dude, built and whatnot. But
I eat a lot of steak. That's it.
Which
apparently isn't great protein if you want to gain weight, according to Justin Gaethje.
What did he say about it?
He was just rice.
Huh.
Which probably is the best food to eat if you want to bulk up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But protein.
Steak's too fattening, I guess.
Protein-wise, yeah.
Though they say it's awesome to have a little trans fat in your diet.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I was surprised, though, for walking around weight that he was that thin.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He's training right now for something.
Yeah.
They haven't announced his next fight. I asked him when his next fight was going to be. Yeah. He kind of just shrugged his shoulders, so there might be something in the works.
Well, Dana White says that he's ready to make Gaethje versus Chandler. He's ready. It's just they haven't made anything official. So I think that probably will be Gaethje's next fight. It makes sense. It's going to be fireworks if it does happen.
Two highly promoted guys who were on tears, who both recently lost their last fights, though.
Yeah, both title fights, though. I mean, it makes sense for both guys, for sure. For sure it does. Gaethje's ranked number 2, Chandler's ranked number 4. It just makes sense. I think stylistically it'd be a great fight. Both have, bombs for hands and can both wrestle, So I think it probably would just be a stand-up fight and just a bash, and they'd trade, and whoever gets knocked out first, if I'm being honest, would probably happen. But I love seeing Gaethje fight.
There is a ton of great fights if you're a fight fan happening right now. Like, obviously, McGregor on a card, everybody's going to watch if you're available to watch, you know? But, like, Chandler versus Gaethje, that is a fight fan's fight.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, you know, when you think about it, it's main event worthy for a pay-per-view, but, you know, you're probably not going to make it in a main event of a fight night. So, what, maybe like a co-main event to a fight? I mean, you know, let's say the winner of this weekend's pay-per-view main event, whoever it is, goes and fights all there, right? Maybe you do make Chandler versus Gaethje as the co-main, you know? I think that'd be a great fight. So we'll see, you know, only time will tell.
What are you most excited for in Vegas this weekend? It's your first time, so we got to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to just see Vegas as it is, but I got to be honest with you, I really feel like the weigh-in's going to be awesome. I don't know why. Even maybe more so than the press conference. The press conference is going to be great. I mean, but I just feel like the weigh-in energy is going to be awesome. When they weigh in front of the whole crowd, screaming. You know, you got Rogan, 155 pounds.
First time in a while. Rogan and Dave Chappelle at MGM Grand Arena.
Thursday night and Friday night.
Wow. A little self-promoting for those guys. They don't need it. But
No, not at all. It'll be packed anyway. But, I mean, you know, I was telling you this right before we got on today. Dana White's saying that this is going to be one. Now, maybe this is just him promoting, you know, could be. But he's saying this weekend is going to be one of the biggest weekends in Vegas ever.
Because it's the first fight weekend in nearly a year and a half. Do you remember the last fight weekend in Vegas before everything? Was it McGregor and Donald? Was that in Vegas?
I think it, yeah.
That was probably the last big fight weekend. They may have had another pay-per-view or a fight night there.
I'm almost positive that was the last pay-per-view there.
So Connor closed it, and he's going to reopen T-Mobile on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, isn't it?
Wow, everything connects. Everything's connected. You ever see the show Manifest?
No.
Have you ever seen the show Manifest? Are you really? Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, like, man, now I feel like I have to explain it. Manifest is this show. There's this flight. It's kind of like Lost, and my roommates are going to laugh because I'm, like, obsessed with it. I watched all 3 seasons this week. Manifest is this show where these people go on a flight, and they're split up from their family because there's, like, a $400 voucher if you want to take the next flight out because it was overbooked. They're flying from Jamaica to New York City. Half the family went on the earlier flight, half went on the later flight, and those who went on the later flight got dropped off later, whatever. It was like, what's the flight from Jamaica to New York City? Like 5-6 hours, something like that. Probably a lot more. I have no idea. My geography's way off. But they landed in a normal amount of time. It was a normal flight, but they hit a little turbulence that was kind of unexpected and kind of unusual. And when they got off the plane, the NSA was there telling them that they were pronounced dead for 5.5 years. So they were in the air for 5.5 years, though it was actually like 5 hours to them. However, their families moved on. It was tough. Like, there was one family where the wife found another guy, then kind of just took her husband back. Another couple were engaged, and he ended up marrying her best friend. You guys got to watch Manifest on Netflix, wherever you get your shows. But why was that connected? Because everything's connected, right? So McGregor's main eventing like he did at 205 when we went, and Stephen Wonderboy's co-main eventing taking on Burns. It's crazy.
Which is crazy, yeah.
It's like we were meant to go. Maybe not with Declan and his antibiotics, but
I know, I'm excited.
Which was really lame.
I feel like
I was really looking forward to Declan performing a few songs. My brother, a musician in town, went down with hopefully not strep throat because we got to leave tomorrow. Yeah. I think my dad's going to be more pissed that he didn't promote himself in the studio more than he's going to be pissed off. But
for sure. No, actually, so I what I was doing on my laptop there was I was actually looking at what the last fight in
shifting gears.
Yeah, what the last fight in Vegas was before the pandemic hit and with a full crowd was actually Adesanya versus Romero.
That's still a huge fight.
It was a huge fight. I didn't realize that was in Vegas, but I did remember that it was the last fight with fans. But yeah.
So final thoughts on McGregor and Dustin Poirier before we wrap up. Because we do have someone else's take that I want to show you that I showed you a little bit earlier.
Yeah. You know, I really think that these guys could fight 10 times, and they probably would win 5 apiece, to be honest with you. I just think that they are the top skill-wise and talent-wise that the UFC has to offer in the lightweight division for sure. they could fight 10 times and win 5 apiece. But I don't know. Sometimes you have to pick like it's the WWE, right? What's best for the UFC, right? Probably McGregor winning, right? As a fan of his, I just want to see it. I want to see him get that gold back. I want to hear the old school trash talk. I want to see the old school mind games being played and all that. If he loses, then I know it's gone and it's in the past and we can just move on. But I'm holding on. I'm thinking maybe it's still there. I just want to see a good fight as well. Poirier is very deserving, hard worker. He's definitely prepared. But I don't know. I think we're also going to see a lot when we see it with our own eyes, how they interact with each other, the energies from both fighters. And then maybe I'll be more convinced one way or another, but right now I'm going McGregor.
So your gut's telling you Connor, but your heart wants Dustin.
No. I'm probably on both sides for McGregor, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. I like Dustin, don't get me wrong, but I more want McGregor than I think that he's going to win, if I'm being honest with you.
A lot of people think McGregor's head is in the business side of everything right now. His head is where the money's at, as opposed to where the fight is. I don't think. Again, he doesn't need.
It
to
could
win
be.
this
Then
fight.
why fight? Why even fight to begin with? You know what I mean? I don't see it. And actually, I'm gonna read this real quick before we move on. It was said by Big John McCarthy why he's fighting, right? Why he thinks he's fighting, and Big John says that. He's fighting because it's a drug he can't get anywhere else. He loves that drug. The walk, the feeling of it, the standing in the cage, the announcement of all of it. He loves it. It lights a fire under his ass. And he can't get that anywhere else if he walks away, right? So that's the reason he keeps fighting. And
well, no
I
doubt.
Think,
Like, he could have retired after the Floyd boxing
Exactly.
match.
So why keep fighting, right? And I think
he loves it, sure.
He loves it. And
however, if he loses this fight...
he's done. He's done. He may just transition to boxing. If he loses...
He's got Pacquiao on the table if he wants that boxing match.
Exactly. If he loses this, I think he's done with MMA. I do. He may fight again, but like done as in old school, trying to get the belt, all that stuff. You know, maybe he fights out his contract, a couple big name fights, wins or loses them, whatever, moves the boxing. It's all show, right? But this is his last chance. His back's against the wall to make one last run.
Well, let's bring in a third take here. He's a UFC Hall of Famer. He's really the last man, I'd say. No offense to Mark Hunt, but the last man to really compete with Brock Lesnar in the octagon in the UFC. He's a star in the new hit movie coming out next year, Expendables 4. He is Mr. Randy Couture.
Mikey, what's going on, buddy? Hey, I got the questions from Jack O'Hara. My pick is Poirier again in the McGregor-Poirier fight. I think that Poirier has McGregor's number. He's figured him out. He's solved the problems. He's going to be in better shape overall. It's my opinion, but I think McGregor has some lifestyle issues that are starting to catch up with him. And I think that's why he seems to fatigue in later rounds. And I think that issue has not gone away. And I think Poirier's got him figured out. So experience fighting Brock Lesnar. Brock is a big son of a bitch. There's no way around that. And a very good wrestler. You find very few guys that weigh 290 pounds that move as well as he did. NCAA champion from Minnesota. I knew I had my work cut out for me fighting him. I felt like I had him going the right direction. I could see the little bit of doubt in his eyes. I think if he hadn't grabbed the fence in that first round, I would have put him on his back and we would have seen how he responded to being on the bottom and getting punched in the face. But overall, he's a huge guy, very athletic. And what you don't expect from him, as big and thick as he looks like he is how long his reach is. I rolled away from that punch, and it just kept coming to hit me right behind the ear. And then once I hit the ground in the flash, there was just the sunlight disappeared, basically. There was no way of getting out from underneath of him. So that's just how it was. Very excited about Expendables 4. We start filming on the 27th of September, coming up here this fall. So I haven't read the new script yet, so I don't know what we're in for, but it's always a blast half the time I read those scripts, I'm like, how in the hell are we going to do that? They pull some real big stuff off in the stunts and the special effects and stuff, so pretty cool. I enjoyed, I guess, I'm not sure if I had a favorite scene, to be honest. I think the first movie with the big monologue that Sly wrote for me specifically was certainly a highlight for me, and I had to be on point with a bunch of great actors and know my lines and be able to deliver all of that. And the director's cut of that is the whole speech. The part that hit the theaters got whittled down. So it was about 2 pages of full dialogue for that speech. It was a lot, but definitely made my butt pucker. Anyway, all the best to you. I hope you're doing well, Mikey. Keep kicking butt with the podcast, the show, and take care, man. Be well.
You ever see any of the Expendables movies?
No.
Never once?
Nope.
Just literally every big guy that you can imagine that acts.
Is in it?
Yeah.
Who else is in it?
Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Oh, wow.
Terry Crews. Yep, the ultimate big guy.
Wow.
Dolph Lundgren.
Interesting. No,
Yeah.
maybe I'll watch them soon.
There's some people that say those movies are really bad. I think they're really good. I really enjoy them. They're not serious movies. You can't take them. You can't go into it thinking it's a Scorsese film, but
Yeah.
they're good movies. But he was on. You couldn't hear it there, but the impression that he gave about Conor McGregor
Yeah.
was what I was feeling. Conor McGregor's not necessarily in the fight mode that you might think he's in. He's more in it for the cash right now. Because I feel like he's getting up there with Floyd Mayweather when it comes to spending on ridiculous things. He's really enjoying his
Yes.
fame like he didn't used to.
Yes, but I also feel like, both guys are making money in different ways. Conor's got whiskey, he's got clothing, he's got fitness. He's making money through those ways. So why fight? In the UFC, at least, right? Like boxing, I could see him going to boxing to make money, right? Because what does it really matter? He could pick and choose some fights, win or lose. But why do that in MMA, especially in the UFC? I think whether he truly does or not, I think he at least has himself convinced that he wants gold again, that he wants to win. I really do. I don't think, especially in MMA, I don't think you can really fight and just do it for money to a degree. At least in my mind. I'm sure there's some guys who do it, and there are some guys who get into the career just to make money, right? Connor did it to begin with to start making money, right? And then, then he wanted greatness and whatnot. But with the money that he does have, right, he could just stop. He really could. I think he does have a desire to continue fighting because he does love fighting, but at the same time, he has the ability for sure to get gold again. So I hope that he can go and do it, but we'll see.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
Yep.
McGregor-Poirier 3, the trilogy fight in Las Vegas this weekend at UFC 264. I'll see you there.
Sounds good.
How can we find you? You got the MMA Mike podcast still going, right?
Yeah, well, I slowed down a little bit just because of this busy summer I've been having, but I'm going to get going, start posting more content again. So I'm excited. Hopefully we'll get some good content this weekend in Vegas. So
We're going to Las Vegas, if you haven't heard already.
Yeah.
This was episode 379 of the podcast. Remember to head on over to Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale. They got their sweepstake giveaway on their Instagram page. Head on over to @MayweatherFit Scottsdale. The grand opening sweepstakes opening this summer in Scottsdale, Arizona. Win a 1-year free unlimited membership. That's right, free, valued at $1,188. Enter now by heading on over to their Instagram page @MayweatherFit in Scottsdale. Again, I'm Jack O'Hara, MMA Mike. Thanks for dropping by. This was episode 379 of The O Show. Thanks for watching.